Hey, are you here? I'm so glad to hear that because it is the Paul Leslie Hour with a review of Jimmy Buffett's first album, Down to Earth. You know, it's been a whole year since singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett passed away, and Paul has been thinking that he would like to begin taking a look back at Jimmy Buffett's incredible body of work, starting with the 70s. It all began with Down to Earth. What do you say, let's listen together?
The album I listened to the most in 2023 was the very first Buffett album, Down to Earth, which was first released August 11th, 1970 on Barnaby Records, the label of the late crooner Andy Williams. It wasn't a runaway success. It sold under 400 copies, but I contend that this is an album worth looking at and, well, listening to. I was inspired to listen to the album again just a couple of days before the one-year anniversary of Jimmy Buffett's passing. I listened again to Down to Earth in a place far, far away from the southeastern United States. Mobile, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee were the key locations related to this album. Key West was still a few years away. I was in Lecce, a most unusual forest and natural reservation in Romania, just a few miles from Ukraine. I wonder if Buffett ever went there. It may seem puzzling why such a location would put that question in my mind. It's because of songs like The Missionary that already revealed a fascination with exploring off-the-beaten-path coordinates and otherwise anonymous people. Even on this early collection of songs, he showed his penchant for real-life characters and the unusual. Something will occur to you as you listen to Down to Earth. It's certainly a folk rock record. It's a collection of tunes that fits into that world of Don McLean and Bob Dylan, with just a current of country that appears and fades away now and then. Milton L. Brown is perhaps the music industry veteran who knew Jimmy Buffett before anyone. Years ago, I visited him at his office in Mobile, Alabama, Bama Boy Productions, and he described these songs and how they're quite different from the Jimmy Buffett the world would know. Listen.
I don't think it's anything like he is today.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, it's long before Jimmy turned out to be the Caribbean cowboy.
Yeah.
The sand between the toes, Jimmy that everybody knows and loves. No, I don't know how deep you want to go into that relationship, but when I met Jimmy, he was just out of school, and he came into a little studio we had here in Mobile and recorded a few things, and
all of the songs were written by Jimmy Buffett, with a couple of co-writes, one by Milton L. Brown and the other with the late Buzz Cason. You'll be hearing clips from my interviews with both of these men in this review. We'll also hear from Travis Turk, who, as you'll find out, has an incredible speaking talent. Turk also played a big hand in the creation of Down to Earth and the album recorded after it. First things first, Down to Earth wasn't recorded to be an album. Rather, the songs were more intended to exist on their own. Here's Travis Turk, credited as the producer of Down to Earth. He explains it here. Listen. What are your recollections of making that album, Down to Earth, his very first?
Well, we didn't record it as an album, actually. I told you earlier that we had recorded these demos, these fleshed out demos, and most of those songs were part of the album package. When we packaged up these 12 songs and presented it to Mike Shepard, who was the head of the label here in town for Barnaby Records, which was owned by Andy Williams, he liked everything about it. And I said, okay, well, great, give us some money and we'll go in and recut everything. He says, no, we want to keep what you have. We like what you've got. I said, but we can have, I was the drummer on the thing, and I said, we can get a better drummer. We can clean all this up and make it more presentable. He said, no, we like this. And both Buzz Cason and I shook our heads, and I said, well, look, we're going to take some of the money and we actually are going to recut some of these things. And we did that on our own and took our, what little money they gave us to recut some of the things. And that became the first album. So some of the songs that are on there, I'm still playing drums, and we had friends like Bob Cook, who was Jimmy's mentor back in Mobile at the club he first played in. He played bass on some of the things. Like the first song on the album is called "The Christian?", which was co-written by Milton Brown. Everything else was written by Jimmy on that album. Let's see, we had some friends that I had gathered up, musician friends, to play on the album. So that's what you hear. And actually, in retrospect, for something that was cut as mostly demos back in 1969, actually sounds pretty good. I go back and listen to it occasionally and wonder how in the world we did as good as we did with the limited resources that we had.
A great summation from Travis Turk. Buzz Cason added this.
Mike Shepard of Barnaby Records put them out for us. We wanted to redo them and do them better in a better studio or whatever, but he wanted to put them out like they were, and it didn't sell much, but it got him on his way. The album was called Down to Earth.
I guess that's a good way of looking at things. It got Jimmy Buffett on his way. Now let's get into the songs. The album starts with The Christian, co-written with Milton L. Brown, and I look at it as a song about hypocrisy. I recently reconnected with Milton L. Brown, and he weighed in about the song's genesis. Watch.
No, he was doing different material. The Christian was like that. That was his idea. I helped with the lyrics on it. He had the melody ready, and he knew what he wanted to say. The key line in it was, could you really call yourself a Christian if charity cost half as much as beer? And so it was typical Buffett humor.
LSD was co-written by Buzz Cason, who we heard from earlier. He was the same guy who co-wrote the hit song Everlasting Love. LSD, of course, is a reference to the drug LSD. This was, after all, the late 60s, early 70s. Buzz Cason passed away on June 16, 2024. I'd like to add that he was a super nice guy. The Missionary, which I mentioned earlier, is one of the original examples of Jimmy Buffett's ability to tell an atypical story. It has a protest song element to it, describing the repurposing of sword blades into plows. That takes us to A Mile High in Denver, which reveals what will be a recurring theme in Jimmy's music, an autobiographical vantage point of a new place as seen through the eyes of a person that is one part poet, one part adventurer. Down to Earth has one of the most relatable songs Jimmy wrote, which is paradoxically one of the most personal. The Captain and the Kid first appeared here. Jimmy Buffett thought a lot of this one and would record 2 more studio versions through the years, making 3 versions in all. The producer of Down to Earth, Travis Turk, shared with me about his encounter with the subject of that song. Listen.
We actually did record some songs in those years that actually made albums later on, like The Captain and the Kid. That was one of my all-time favorite songs not because of this, but I'd happened to meet Jimmy's grandfather, the Captain, at his wedding. I remember at the reception, he was sitting in a window that overlooked Mobile Bay. And I didn't know his history. All I knew was that, here's this guy. He's sitting there, and I've got a drink in my hand, and he's staring out at the water, and I just struck up a conversation with him. And I don't remember the conversation at all, but I do remember that he mentioned that he was his grandfather. And then later when we did The Captain and the Kid, and I heard that story, and I asked Jimmy, is this true? He said, oh, yeah, every bit of it's true. It was a real honor to meet the Captain, and the Kid, of course, being Jimmy.
Captain America is a bouncy study of the Marvel comic book superhero. that mentions then Vice President Spiro T. Agnew. That takes us to Ain't He a Genius, which may be the most underrated song on Down to Earth. It's well conceived, and it was perhaps unintentionally or intentionally autobiographical. Like the genius in the song, Jimmy became a star, but the song also explores the jealousy that flows when someone hits massive success. Many have observed that the true litmus of someone's success in the music business is how many people criticize you. The song has some real depth to it if you look closely at the lyrics. Turnabout is a song with tremendous tenderness, both in the delivery and the treatment of the character. I wonder who the girl in the song was, or was she even real? There are a couple of references to Mobile, with the narrator and the reunited friend, or was she something more, agreeing that Mobile had never changed? It's something that I've noticed about the city of Mobile, a continuity. There's Nothing Soft About Hard Times is a song about the reality of poverty. The lyric, I could see I wasn't meant for poverty, explains Jimmy Buffett's work ethic. I recall seeing Simon and Garfunkel live on stage. They reminisced about being penniless in the early days and how easy it is to idealize early struggles with success or even staying above water. Nobody would ever actually consider returning to those times by choice. Jimmy's line, I wasn't meant for poverty, would prove true soon enough. I Can't Be Your Hero Today makes me think of It Ain't Me, Babe by Bob Dylan. The singer is telling it like it is. I'm not the man you're looking for. Down to Earth ends with Truck Stop Salvation, perhaps the sonic anomaly on the album. It seems like it would fit into that time period and has a psychedelic feel to it. It's quite different from anything Buffett ever recorded, the last 2 minutes being a long, trippy instrumental outro, reminiscent of the Grateful Dead. That ends your experience. Although this record wasn't a commercial success, Jimmy Buffett would find his place in the sun soon enough. Although it didn't yield any hits or generate a lot of buzz, there's plenty to enjoy on this album and ample evidence of a one-of-a-kind songwriter and recording artist. Jimmy Buffett had something very special. Milton L. Brown noticed it right away.
Jimmy walked in, and Paul, his smile literally lit up the room. And I said to myself, if this guy can sing, there's promise there. And he sort of became like a little brother, like a younger brother. And he was so kind and so easy to deal with.
The album title, Down to Earth, makes me notice the mostly domestic nature of the songs here. The geographic exploration was still a seedling, but there was so much more to be said. Still so much to be done. Next, we'll leave the fresh earth of this debut collection and go to higher lands. High Cumberland Jubilee was the second record, which I plan to go into soon. It's been great having you join me. Now I invite you to consider my assignment. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to listen to this album. I mean, really listen closely. Enjoy the experience of hearing it. Tune out the distractions and really listen. What do you think of this album? What do you notice? I hope you'll try this and let me know. Thanks again. Until next time.